Hello, hello. Welcome to a Thursday evening. We are here on 8 p.m. Central or Eastern Standard Time, and we have a guest that should be coming here in about 15 minutes. But I wanted to welcome you all. Thank you for coming to Holistic Life Consultants, and I'm going to throw the social media up. holisticlifeconsultants.com if you want to become a member. At The Life Coach Insta if you're going to be on Instagram, and on YouTube, youtube.com/The Life Coach. So, all right. We have some interesting information to go over. We have some things to discuss. We have all kinds of stuff to talk about today. But I wanted to discuss futurism. It's one of the things that we're going to talk about today with our guest, and therefore, it's one of the things that I think is important as we sip our coffee together, which, hold on, we have R2D2. Yeah, oof, hurts a little bit, but I'm going to show you R2D2. Oof, that hurts a little bit. But that is the coffee that we have for the mug of the day, which is the decaffeinated. It doesn't have, it's a hot coffee. So we're going to try this today. If you have a tea, if you have a beverage, if you have a water, if you have a whatever, just, cheers for you today for being here with us. Ooh. We're going to do a double sip. Ooh, okay. So let's take a look today at our future evidence. Let's take a look at our Zoom calls for the day. We will have the Zoom call that's set up, but I want to make sure that we have the video here for you as me. And we'll have a discussion with our friend Super Connector SJ Barconi. So we're going to have him come on right now. He just joined the conversation, and so we're going to have him join. And I will let him know that we are not available to him via audio, but we are available to him via video and audio if he is in the viewer section of the call. So we'll see if you guys can hear him. Please let me know in the chat if you guys can hear him. I have him in the waiting room, and he is a participant, so we'll see if he accepts. And if you guys can hear him and you can see him, that would be great. I will put him in the shared chat for overlay. That's what he is in right now. So when he jumps on, that's what we're going to have him join. SJ, can you hear me? All right, we're going to put this in the text chat. All right. And I asked him to turn on his camera and mic. We'll see if he is on. All right. So he can't hear me right now. Can you hear me through the Zoom call right now? Okay. So right now, what I have you on is I have you zoomed in where you can hear me through the conversation, and everybody can see me on my camera, but also everybody can see you on the video through the OBS. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and talk about you're a futurist and you talk, a lot of the things that we discussed when we were one-to-one. Love to have you talk about your history. I think you're fascinating, and I think our audience would also be fascinated in hearing your expertise and how you got there. Yeah, jump in. We have Crypty tells us we can hear you loud and clear, and Miss Nick says we can hear your guest and you can't hear me. So go ahead. We can hear you. All right, hold on 1 second. I have people I trust are telling me that I can't hear you, and they can't hear you. So I'm gonna try to do an audio input capture and add you in. So yes, like give me 1 second. Let me make sure that people can hear you. Absolutely. So let me jump in here. I'm gonna try to add you in. I just asked if people could hear you and they said no. So I'm going to try to add you again. I had this issue yesterday with a browser, which people could not hear me, which was kind of odd that people couldn't hear me. So let's see, Zoom. All right, let's try that. Can try to talk?
Hello and a great day, evening to you. Greetings. Hello. Thumbs up.
Yep, there they go. Now they can hear you. All right, so go ahead. Introduce yourself. What is it that you do? How did you get here? And how did you manage to magic your way into a Zoom call with me without having major flaws that we had to restart?
Nice. I like the vulnerability, Mr. Eric. That speaks well of you. Technology is what it is. All right. Regardless of what time zone you're in, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, whatever, I bid you greetings. And it is a true pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you. My philosophy in life is serve, solve, and share. So I am SJ. That is my name. I do get asked from time to time if it is or isn't, and it is, I promise you.
Guilty.
Indeed. And it's, again, and that's part of society's sticking you in boxes. Oh, someone can have that kind of a name. Well, of course they can. It's called freedom and liberty. okay, which is not as common, unfortunately, that some people might think it is. But I am on a mission to change that, so we'll get there. So SJ, last name is Baracone, or as one of my dear friends' young kids used to call me, Baracone.
I like it.
they couldn't they couldn't completely get all four syllables out. I totally was fine with that. It cracked me up just like it did you. So if you want to call me Mr. Baracone, I will laugh along with you.
I like it.
All right. So there's the preliminaries. So I have lived in the States in America for my whole life, specifically the state of Ohio. However, I don't plan to be here all that much longer, but at the moment when we're recording this, that's where I reside, still in the state of Ohio. And my story can be anyone's story. I'm not anyone special. I grew up in a household with a solopreneur, sole proprietor father. He ran a business by himself for about roughly 20 years. And my mom, for most of that time, up until I entered conventional high school, was a stay-at-home mom. No siblings, lived in a regular American neighborhood, right? So very nondescript, right? Went to a conventional high school. Depending on your perspective, you might call it a public school, you might call it a government-funded or run school. Regardless, you're talking the same thing.
Yeah.
So that was my general upbringing, and it was in the metro area of Cleveland. So I stayed up in Cleveland all the way until society's signals said, okay, SJ, in order for you to be successful, you need to attend college. Raise your hand. Tell Eric if you've heard that same thing. Okay?
I gotta say, most people have raised their hands and told me.
Right. So I was no different because I'm a Gen Xer. Okay? I'm in that forgotten generation, folks, in between the big boomers.
Yep.
Who are retiring in waves. Well, some of them are. And the millennials who get lots of attention as Gen Y, right? So I was an Xer, and I like to say, folks, including you, Eric, that I was the last full generation that was completely sold that bill of goods. Go to college, or you're not going to be as successful in life. Okay? So that brought me down to central Ohio, near the metro area of Columbus. Went to a university, and to its credit, it was a liberal arts university, which at last check, 1 out of every 7 accredited institutions that are 4 years in the country meet that standard. Okay. So not too shabby, right?
Not too bad.
Private university. And I get out of that university with your conventional major, and in my case, I did 2 minors. And here comes the next part. I'm on the next phase of the conveyor belt. Conveyor belt, phase 1, you go to a conventional school for 13 years. And by the way, be asking yourself this question before we get too much further down the road.
Okay.
What is so magical about 13 years in a classroom, K to 12? I asked you that question. Have you ever asked that question before? You should. The answer is there really isn't. Okay.
I put it in the chat.
Phase of the conveyor belt, again, was the college university. Then the next phase. Raise your hand again if you were told or if you were encouraged coming out of a college classroom now with another credential, this time a degree instead of a diploma. Raise your hand or speak up if you were told now or if you were encouraged to get a job. Because a job is secure, it's a career step, and it is your option, right? Did you hear about a startup getting a business off the ground? Did you hear about a side hustle even? Probably not, okay? If you have, I'd like to hear from you because that means you were actually pretty blessed.
No, but I was definitely told
that's what I heard.
Go to a grad school
father,
program.
For a good chunk of my upbringing was in business, I got no encouragement, and he had already sold the business because he had some health challenges. So I ended up in the corporate world. And for a few years of my roughly 15 years in the corporate world, it actually wasn't too bad, right? I did some advancement, you know, got my pound of flesh, here's your next raise, here's your annual review, that kind of jazz. However, I was never, especially as the 15 years kept drawing on, those last 5 were almost like waiting to be paroled. Okay.
Oof.
And then the middle 5 were sort of just average. The first 5, I'd say, were pretty good. Okay. Generally speaking. So it was in those last 5, though, that the seeds of entrepreneurship and the seeds of becoming a futurist were planted. Okay. So in the last 5, I ran.
Hold on. I want to pause real quickly because we already have people who've responded. Miss Nick, as well as myself, we said yes. We were definitely told to get a job after classes. And also, Crypty says out of high school and straight into the military for him. So there's a lot of people who really are resonating with what you're saying right now. And your story is very much what we've been told is the quote unquote right way to go. So, I just wanted to throw that out there, but please continue.
Absolutely. Jump in anytime, obviously, because I want this to be engaging. I want this to be somewhat of a dialogue to the best, So then in that last 5 years, I ran into some things that, again, some in your audience, or maybe all in your audience, some percentage will say, yep, that was me too. For me, I ran into some roadblocks. Number one, in a conventional hierarchy, and here's your word of the day, 25 cents for it, Taylorist, a Taylorist hierarchy, which is a 100-year-old concept, meaning like you can't get above the next person unless the next person retires or leaves or something, meaning that you're stuck, right? The hierarchy, you're stuck. You can't pass the next person. Okay. That was the first thing. I'm getting all these great reviews and I'm going nowhere fast. Okay. Sort of like at a airport, you're on that tram going between gates and all of a sudden it gets stuck, right? You're thinking, I have to walk now? Yeah. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I was constantly being told, and it was starting to gnaw on me because they never were able to explain it. It was like, well, there's this big pool of money that's available for your bonus, SJ. But however, we have to distribute in an equitable fashion. And even though you got these great reviews, you still get your wonderful 2% raise. Congratulations. So that was starting to catch me. And, so all these things were starting to pile up. And I also had serious Peter Principle problems. Management and leadership are radically different concepts. And I did not have a single leader in 15 years of corporate life, not a single one. Okay. So all these things were happening. And then one of my good friends, Justin, he and I had worked on some projects in the corporate world together. And he knew I was unhappy. And he made a decision that helped me, and I'll never be able to repay him, folks. And that decision was he introduced me to a family friend of his. Family friend of his, a guy named Terry, was a retired corporate executive who had run into the same issues as I found out after I met him years prior. He's in his 60s, and he was looking for younger people to mentor. He had plenty of time on his hands, and he had built some business interests, and he was looking for people like me who were sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? So Justin introduces me to Terry at a Starbucks of all places. This happened in 2010, so a little over 12 years ago, spring of 10. And
so
that
tips
meeting
weren't $3 or you didn't get your coffee.
Say that again.
So when the tips were not $3 or you didn't get your coffee.
That's right. So 2010, so we're talking 12 years ago, before massive inflation and required tips and all that jazz, right? Well put, sir. Well put. So I sit down with Terry at the Starbucks, and and Justin stuck around, and that night everything changed for me. I had my first mentor, and I ended up meeting with Terry on and off in that first year and a half, because here is something that Alvin Toffler taught us, and this is the first sign of futurism in my backstory.
Okay.
The illiterate of the 21st century are those that will not or won't unlearn, learn, and relearn. So you have to be able to unlearn things that are not productive, influential, impactful in your life. You have to learn stuff that is. And then you have to also sometimes relearn things that maybe you forgot or maybe you didn't think were important at some point in your life prior. So Toffler was a known futurist. And that was the first sign. So I went through literally a detox period, because I had a detox from 3 societal programming phases. Phase 1, this completely compulsory 13 years sitting in a classroom in a public government funded school.
Yeah.
Step 2, had to go to college, SJ, or you're not going to make anything of yourself. Step 3, got to get a job, stable benefits, start a career path, and be happy going and sitting in a cubicle all your life. Okay. So it took 18 months to detox from that, folks. It wasn't, I'm sorry to say, if you're looking for instant gratification, I don't have that in my backstory. So you have to put some time in.
I do want to address that, because one of the things that I think is really important in your story is the lack of instant gratification. So I think that it's really important for people to hear that you had a career, you had an education, you had a job, you had a path, and
Yes.
then that was all turned on its head, and then it was like, it's not just so simple as, oh, you're now plugged into this new path and you're all set and all the puzzle pieces fit together the way that you wanted them to. But in fact, you had to relearn, you had to re-educate, you had to recertificate yourself into getting into a new position, and that took more than a year. Am I right on that?
You are right. So it took about 18 months from meeting Terry for the first time via Justin at that Starbucks to starting my very first side gig. So that was my first entrepreneurial step. It took 18 months though, because I had a lot of bad wiring that I had to root out. I had a lot of programming that I had to deprogram, detox, right? Yeah. Absolutely. 18 months. Okay. Fall of 11 now. Advanced narrative. Fall of 11, I start with my first venture, and I had heard, I was now plugged in, by the way, over 18 months, Terry had plugged me into a lot of things that the first 17 years there, I already mentioned what those 17 years were. He plugged me into things that I had never learned before. Okay. I had to relearn and or learn things like financial mindset, thinking like a producer instead of a consumer. I had to learn the mental game. This is $1 trillion supercomputer up here, and most people use less than 10% of it.
Yep.
Okay. I had to learn the social cultural game. If the people around me, and remember, I'm side gigging it now, so I'm still taking the paycheck, right? If the people around me are not going to be encouraging, don't bother with them anymore. I mean, don't be rude, but don't bother with them. So I stopped hanging out with a lot of the people that I used to hang around with, because they were what I refer to, Eric, as problem identifiers or problem amplifiers. They weren't looking for solutions. They were just moaning and complaining about having to go to work, right?
So two things I want to bring up there. I obviously I resonate with everything that you're saying, and I think a lot of people that are listening. One of the people who was out of here, Miss Nick, says Eric doesn't believe in instant gratification. I roll. Obviously I agree with that, but can you talk about the pain and turmoil of losing those friendships that you built up and you thought were going to be the friends of your life, that you thought were a given? I think that people overlook the difficulty of losing friendships that hold you back. And if you could get into some detail, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if that was something that you could give some detail on, I think that could help people a lot.
Oh, certainly. The way I'm telling this story is, I've told this story in other podcasts and other forums before, and there's always going to be slightly different things that come back to me, right, as I'm recalling. And this is a great one to land on. So, okay, so I want to say it was John C. Maxwell who first introduced me, and this is again part of my self-directed education now, lifelong learning that Terry taught me, okay, which again started in the spring of 10, and here I am 18 months in, and as of this recording, I'm now 12 plus years into it, right?
Right.
So part of that was studying books about building relationships, people, skills that Dale Carnegie, Jim Rohn, John Maxwell, Earl
Zig Ziglar.
Nightingale, Zig Ziglar. I can go on
Yep.
and on and on. Stephen R. Covey before he passed. All of these people have had their life's legacy written out there, but you don't get it in a classroom, and it mystifies me.
Yeah.
So one of the things that was in a lot of what I was reading and growing from was, what is a real friendship? And I gave a talk years later in the summer, I think, or fall of 15, Eric, and it was about what I had learned about the 8 true qualities of friendship. Now, I won't be able to recall them all off the top of my head, but it applies to your question.
Yeah.
One of them is you need to divorce the concept that friendship should only be based on utility. And utility can be defined in a couple different ways. And one of the ways is you are friends because you are in physical proximity to them at a workplace.
For sure. For
okay?
Sure. Yep, for sure.
So I had to be comfortable enough, even though there was some short-term pain, to be able to separate, because it was utility, which is not a deep, true core quality of true friendship. Rather, it is more of an acquaintance. These folks are. They're acquaintances. Nothing wrong with that. However, it's not meant to be the same thing. So stop going out and having happy hours, and I would be reserving my dollars to invest in my own library. I ended up selling 90% of my DVDs to invest in a library. I took the money that I used to throw away whining and complaining about work, and I put that into my library. I went to events. I went to seminars that Terry suggested. Some of them were local. Some of them were far away. I got some road time in, and I was using my vehicle as a rolling university. So notice there wasn't as much pain as you might think, because I learned from a lot of these giants that we now stand on the shoulders of.
Yep.
I learned from them what friendship really was, because I had been programmed again, very subconsciously, that because I'm in physical proximity to them, utilitarian wise, I am a friend. Okay. So that is my answer. Is, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I didn't face any pain or anything, but it was much more short term than you might imagine, because I had the benefit of that kind of mental game that I was now engaged in. Okay.
No, I think that's really great, because Crypty said, like, you have a tendency to lose friends by being a cop for 24 years too. So, he has that life experience as well, where he loses a lot of friends by discussing things that he has gone through. And I know him, he's a great guy, and he's definitely gone through some things, and he's towards, retirement as well. But I think it's really valuable to hear people talk to somebody who's gone through this and learned about your value, your individual value, like what it is that you bring to the table and what it is you're looking for as you're moving forward in your career and in your path to success. So we kind of have like some background in what you're doing, but like so now you've gone that direction, you've gotten those, you've got more focus, you've done those things. Talk to us a little bit about like where you're at now, like what it is that you're doing now, and where is
Sure.
this market? Where do people find you, and what is it that you do?
Sure. So where we left it was the side gig, and I will take a quantum leap. For those Gen Xers, you'll know what I'm speaking of. Um, I will take a quantum leap forward, and I can always illustrate the rest in if need be. But let's do bring it to the present because there's obviously futurism to weave into.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recording this in the summer of 2022,
Yep.
and where I am now is I've gone through three, I'll call them fairly quiet rebrands since I first started that side gig in the fall of 11.
Okay.
Okay. And let me briefly back up and then I will put the rest in the present. So I'll back up to say when I first started the side gig, I started calling myself back then an educational services company. But the more I was out there, it felt like I was wearing shoes that were just a little bit the wrong size. It wasn't quite a fit.
Okay.
Okay. Then I said quietly, I started to refer to myself, did some quiet branding changes and such, business cards and all that jazz, as an educational solutions provider. Better, but it still wasn't quite reflective of who I was and why I was doing it. And by the way, I'm a huge Simon Sinek guy, so why is number one to me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. And then we come to the present. I am the education Sherpa, and I am offering hashtag Sherpa solutions in the marketplace. Okay. So what do those look like? If you are in business, you might need a consultant. And I know there's a lot of consultants out there. So I made sure that I niched myself on this. So I have niched myself and I specifically offer future of work consulting. Future of work consulting has three components. We may or may not get into that, but I'll keep on moving.
Okay.
Second solution can be offered to both groups of individuals, more B2C-ish, also groups of business professionals, B2B. So it's a crossover, and that is group facilitation. I am a big believer in facilitated dialogue, so I can deliver that in a cohort format, a roundtable, or a mastermind. Next, I am a one-on-one mentor. Terry was my mentor. I am paying forward what he did for me.
Okay.
So mentoring and coaching are brother and sister, cousin type solutions, but they should not be confused for each other. So I am a mentor. I can mentor in the individual sense, say a teacher, a single parent, a young person wanting to start a business, or I can mentor a solopreneur, a sole proprietor, a church leader, an individual teacher. Okay.
Okay.
And then lastly, coming pure B2C now, I offer a family advisory solution, FAS, and that is to discuss any and all things related to educational decision making. So in other words, your family, your household might have a financial planner advisor. Fantastic. They might have, like my family did, an insurance advisor. He wasn't just an agent for us. Jim was literally an extension of our family. So I would consider him to be more of an advisor.
Right.
But have you ever heard of a dedicated educational advisor? If you haven't, you've now met him. Okay.
No, not before today.
So there you go. Educational decision making is a multi-sided platform. It's got different kind of lenses. It's more equivalent to an octagon than it is to a square. A lot of different possibilities. If you have young kids, should you even put them in a conventional pre-K program? Should you send them and register them for kindergarten? Should you pursue a faith-based model? Should you stay secular? Should you start your own school? Should you go into some sort of cooperative arrangement? All kinds of options, younger, older. Remember, college is not, I repeat, not the only option.
Yes.
I'm tracking.
Thank
I'm
you.
tracking. I'm
Thank
tracking.
you.
My pleasure. I'm tracking 12 alternatives, Eric. If you can't name all 12, you got to talk to me. That's what I offer. Okay. If you're an adult, if you're a late boomer or you're an Xer like me, or millennial, even a millennial has to deal with this, you're probably going to need to be up or reskilled at some point in your life. Okay. So I can help adults even if you have no kids in the house, no grandkids. So that all comes under the header of the Family Advisory Solution.
Okay.
So those are the 4 options I offer as Sherpa Solutions. And that's my present day world. And it brings me great joy, Eric.
I mean, I love it. I think that it's really useful. This is the kind of stuff that I think that people need to hear when they're going through their day-to-day lives. I think that it's the kind of stuff that like people don't think about. There's so many things that I have questions about. If you don't mind, I want to take a quick coffee break. I'm going to refill my coffee, and I'd like to go through an article or two with you, and also ask our audience if they have questions of you. I think that you're an incredible resource. I'd love to have you on more than just today, but I want to get people the opportunity to ask you questions. So if you don't mind, I'm going to give a little BRB LOL, and I'm going to grab some coffee with you.
Absolutely. I'll go on mute for a moment.
All right, let's do it. All right, everybody, we're going to go on to a BRB LOL, and we're going to play some music for you, and we will be right back with our guest, SJ. And please get your hot beverage. Please grab some questions that you have, and we are going to ask him whatever it is that we have for him to, because he's here with us and he's willing to divulge some of his expertise. So we will be right back with some hot, fresh, delicious beverage. We are back. We're doing the full screen chat right now. Thank you all for being here so far. Hanging out with us, we are talking today about career, niche, and how you fit into the future, and how it's not always the same from one person to the other. And right now we have SJ, who is with us to talk about the future of industry, the future of business, and any questions that you may have about your own career, about like maybe you're in the middle of your career, maybe you're in the beginning of your career. Maybe this is something that you've never even thought of before, and that's the best. I love when I grab people and they're just completely caught off guard because they have never thought about this, and this is something that is like completely new and unique to them. So Ms. Nick, Crypty, and others who have already commented, thank you very much. But if you have other questions, I am happy to ask those of SJ as we go forward. I'm going to bring him back in, and we are going to ask him some questions, first of all, that I have pre-canned because, you know, I had questions from the first time that I talked to him. And just so you know, I'm cheating. I've already talked to him. I already have questions of him, and I have probably another 2 or 3 hours of information that I like to glean from him. So I'm going to be stalking him and getting this information as we go. And then you can feel free to ask questions, and I will jump in and put those into the chat if you feel that you want to put that in. So, all right, SJ, thank you again for being in here today.
it is a pleasure, and again, I appreciate this opportunity.
It's very rare that I have the opportunity to talk to somebody who's really a historian, but also a
Yes.
futurist. And the difference that I think between a historian and a futurist is a historian is really keen on interesting facts of the past, and a futurist is somebody who applies those to the future and actually makes that something that's applicable to today. So, I very appreciative to have you here today. I would like to ask you about like what majors or career paths do you see in the next 5 to 10 years are more lucrative than others, or maybe are secretive, or maybe even if you have some things to kind of stray away from that everybody is telling these young kids, like, hey, you got to do this, this is the thing to do. Some of those, like either a word to the wise or maybe even like some opportunities for the future. I think that would be super useful for our clients.
That would be the equivalent of a loaded baked potato question. Um, so if you're hungry, get your loaded baked potato now at the bar. A lot of stuff going on there. Okay, let's attempt to dive into this. When you look at history, I am a believer in the cycle theories of history. There's a couple thought leaders that I studied over the last 12 years. And there's also a theory of challenge and response.
Okay.
So I frame everything as a amateur historian and as a total committed futurist through challenge response and cycle theory. Okay. So challenge response is probably the best framing vehicle for your question, although there is some cycle theory I may bring in.
Okay.
So the challenge is we are now in the process of having Zoomers in many respects going through this system. Okay. And keep in mind, again, the system or the conveyor belt that I mentioned has usually 3 steps. K to 12, some magical 13 years.
Yep.
Very few people can answer why, again, remember. Okay. Number 2, college, university. And number 3, some sort of career. Okay. So that's the challenge. This is a framework that has been built up by the status quo in our society, which I tend to say has 4 pillars: the mass media, the political class, the corporations, and the conventional schooling establishment.
Okay.
Okay. So what we need to do with the challenge to that's the challenge.
Yes.
Now let's do the response. Remember, solutions provider versus problem identifier or amplifier, right? So I think the future is going to reward those who are looking to decentralize things that simply do not work because they violate the rule of 150. Okay.
Tell me about that. What's the rule of 150?
The rule of 150 has a few other different names, but I tend to call it that. So there's a few other names. So if you're looking it up, understand there might be a couple other names, right? But the rule of 150 says an organization entity that has more than 150 active people in it tends to break down, and it just no longer is effective and efficient. So clearly, the vast majority of schools fail the rule of 150. Way too big.
For sure.
Way too big.
For sure.
Way too big. Okay. Most corporations fail the rule of 150. Way too big.
Right.
Okay. Most political establishment, especially your party system, fail it because they're way too big. On and on and on. Right. So that is where the future lies, is be ideating and visioneering on what you can offer in the market.
Okay.
Whether you do it by yourself or whether you form a partnership, form a collaboration, create a co-op, however form you take. Okay. Find ways to decentralize things. Okay. So here's some verticals that are ripe for it. Number 1, financial services, very tired industry. Okay. Number 2, what they call healthcare, but I do apologize. I don't mean to ruffle feathers, but maybe I do. is healthcare often is confused for medical care.
Yes.
Not the same thing.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. And we talked about that yesterday, actually. So I'm totally on board.
I figured you were, but I figured I'd also put a little bit of a disclaimer on it because, again, that's a deeply seated one, too.
Yep.
Okay. Another is the offering of legal service. Okay. Very tired industry there, too, needs to be disrupted. Another would be the media. Way too big. There's been so many mergers over the years. We're down to the point where most of the media that's offered to you, if you did a little bit of deep research, is literally centralized under less than 10 major corporations.
There are, I will tell you, there are in fact 6 major corporations that own all of the media companies that give us the news today. 6.
Bingo. I knew it was less than 10. So there you go, folks. Yep. Tag teaming with Eric. There you go. Okay. So media needs to be decentralized. Another that I can think of is, what a shock. Education. Okay. That one I purposely held till last. It's like that was beyond obvious, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's the first part of my answer to your baked potato question, or your loaded baked potato question. Find ways to decentralize. Another is what all of the future trends I'm tracking, and I'm tracking 15 of them. Understand that's subjective. There, some may say there's 20 SJ, or there's 18, or there's 36. I mean, it's just a subjective number.
Right.
Of the 15 trends, one way that you can become, to the best of your ability, future-proofed is offer something that is malleable and customizable and is able to be delivered across all sorts of boundaries, geographic, societal, economic, things like that. Something that cannot be commoditized.
Well, hold on. This is probably the most important thing that you've said this entire interview, and I'd really like for you to repackage it and simplify it as much as possible for our audience. What you're talking about is how to make your path future-proof. And what you have basically said, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to make it so that your audience and your customers are broad enough where it's not going to be cut out by a corporation, it's not going to be cut out by a new technology, it's not going to be cut out by a new medium. But correct me if I'm wrong, and please make this as succinct as you possibly can, because this, honestly, this is one of the things that I get asked probably more than anything from young entrepreneurs is, how do I make the thing that I care about, my business that I care about, the food service that I care about, the honest service practice that I care about, how do I make that future-proof? And you just gave that window
Yes.
into how to do that. Can you please restate that?
Make your offering heterogeneous. Spread it out so it is a solution for as many people as possible, but deliver it in a way that is scalable at the same time. So in other words, you're offering something of value, but you're not niching down to the point that you're only offering it to wealthy people, or you're dealing with people who can't make decisions because they're constantly in financial distress, things like that. You want to prevent that. And you also want to prevent pricing wars, okay? You need to offer something that is so valuable that people will focus on the frame of, it is going to remove pain in my life that I have been wanting to remove for X amount of years, maybe my whole life, okay? So that's another way to state it. Hopefully it was simple enough, is it needs to be something that is not able to be commoditized by someone who can undercut you on price or out advertise you or corner you in the market with some kind of regulatory stuff. Because bottom line is, if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have the bandwidth to be dealing with Facebook and its army of attorneys, for example. See what I'm saying? So
Yes,
there you go.
absolutely. I was going on a walk today and I walked past a business that said European violin lessons. And it was one of my favorite signs that I've seen in a very long time because, man,
Yes.
I don't know what that means, but I know that that person is providing something that I can't just go look up online and say violin lessons because it's European violin lessons. It's something that
Right.
is specific and probably higher caliber than what I'm going to find just by googling it. And I enjoyed that and I thought that might fit into what you're talking about because it is a specialty. It's
Yes.
not too niche where like, oh well, like there's 80 people providing European violin lessons, but it is niche enough where it's like, well, this is a higher caliber service than just simply I will teach you how to play violin and do all the notes, for instance.
Exactly. So great example. Appreciate that drop in because it does illustrate my point. And again, I'm doing my best to simplify it, but again, there's a couple buzzwords that hopefully you'll pull out as a part of the simplification. Number one, be broad, solve as much pain as you can. Number two, avoid pricing wars. And number three, come at it from a perspective of how can you serve things and decentralize things that simply are not working in a larger construct of like Facebook. That's why Facebook is a completely failing enterprise right now. It will not be around in 5 years in my reasoned view.
I
Okay.
I can't even tell you how much I love to hear you say that because I've been talking about the major social media platforms, including Instagram. I mean, I just, in my opinion, I've looked at it and I've seen YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and the ways that they are promoting themselves, and not the actual platform, but the ways that they're promoting individual platforms, channels, creators, people like that. That has a finite lifespan, and then people are going to lose interest, and they're going to need to go on to something else where they see that there's a higher value statement, that there's something more that they're being offered. Like, so it's, I love hearing you say that. Can you talk more about that?
Certainly. So you have these various trends going on right now, like the sharing economy, where you have what are called multi-sided platforms. And by the way, I know I'm throwing something a little higher order at the audience, but a multi-sided platform is nothing more than being a neutral marketplace where someone needs to solve their pain. You have something that solves it. The multi-sided platform becomes neutral and puts you together. It eliminates the friction.
Right.
There's, by the way, another area you want to get into is offer those platforms. One that you might not think and might not have ever put in this context before, folks, but the people who founded it are doing very well for themselves. Airbnb. Okay. And there are many others. TaskRabbit. I can go on and on and on. Okay, the other thing, focus on being a Youpreneur. You are the business. Keep it as simple as you can. Be as small as you can, as nimble as you can, and that'll help you as well with being future proofed. Because again, remember that rule of 150. And then the third thing that I wanted to bring into this is the concept of the creator economy. Be creating things that are going to be solving challenges in society from the bottom up, grassroots, bottom up. There's your key. Now, you were asking me more, Eric, about, I gave the example of social media, right?
Right.
Okay, let me tap dance on that one a little bit per your request. Here's the thing about social media. I'm not anti-social media. What I am anti is we have lost through the current modality, the status quo, we have lost what is called the educational commons, where people can come together, in this case in a digital setting, and have divergent perspectives and opinions, have facilitated open dialogue, and have the ability to then build true friendships that are not utilitarian. Okay? We've lost that with the existing system.
Okay.
So we need to rediscover that. And there have been a few attempts in the past that didn't quite work out as well. I won't get into that because we don't have the time. The bottom line is, if you are one of those people that can start something that rediscovers the educational commons, where people can do things, and another term you might be a little more familiar with from your audience would be around the kitchen table or the water cooler.
Yes. Yes.
That is what we need badly. Civil discourse, rational civil discourse, discussion, dialogue.
Whew.
We are missing it in big tech. Big tech must be broken into so many pieces that Humpty Dumpty can't put it together again.
Man, I gonna have you on several other times because what you're saying, what you talk about, is exactly what I foresee the major ailments of social media being in the next 3 to 5 years. I hear you talk about this, and you have such a keen eyesight on this, like an eagle eye. Like you know, it's working. Social media is working. People are doing it. People are making money on it. But you have that keen mindset that you see like this is not going to work long term. And I think that you've diagnosed exactly the problem. And like to plug like the things that we do for my website, and hopefully the things that are working for your platform is, a lot of the work that we do behind the scenes on Holistic Life Consultants is to support each other in individual websites, which I think is the future. It's the past, but it's the future. I don't know if you know about dead internet theory, but there's a lot of right now we're living in the aggregate society where everything is about the aggregators, the Facebook, the YouTube, the Instagram, where it's clicking towards these 3 or 5 websites, but like all the major platforms click towards those same things. And the way that you advertise is you get onto those, you pay a lot of money, and then they go to your website. But it's all the aggregators. The aggregators rule the day. Whereas like in the 90s, the late 90s, it was all about www.blablabla.com. Like people would advertise their exact website, and their portals would take you to what it is that they do, and they would have to give a little bit of a 30-second pitch. This is what we do. This is our website. This is our, this is how you get to us. This is how you find us. Now it's so much more of, hey, I have an Instagram commercial, and this hot chick is going to tell you with her yoga pants how you find out what our website is. And you click on this, and she's going to show you by clicking through what it is that we're selling. Or, hey, you have an electric bike? You want an electric bike? There's only 5 advertisements right now on Instagram about electric bikes. And since they paid the most money, you're going to find one of those 5 bikes, and you're going to buy it because there's not that many websites left that sell electric bikes, and only the ones that pay money to Instagram/Facebook/Meta, those are the only ones that you're gonna find, because you're only on aggregator websites. You're on Facebook.com, Instagram.com, YouTube.com, you're on Twitch.com. So you're not really browsing the internet, you're browsing aggregators. So I find that like a lot of what you're talking about is really putting a fine point on the fact that people are getting sick of being advertised to through aggregator websites, and they actually want to find solutions to their problems.
That's right.
And that may bring us back to a www dot website solution. So can you speak to that at all?
I sure can. One frame you can run this through is the concept of permission versus interruption marketing. Okay. I would prefer to opt into your messaging where you get my permission rather than you interrupt and I have to opt out. Okay. That's the first way you can look at it. Another is we've almost put the late 90s on a multi-decade steroid program. What do I mean by that? Raise your hand in the audience, and if you, again, are a Gen Xer like me, how many of those little AOL discs did you receive, and was it enough to have enough coasters for the next 6 generations of your family?
I had great CDs, man. I got to tell you, I had really great internet subscription services. What was the one CD service that I had? Launch. I had Launch, where I
Yeah.
had I had an awesome overlay that I could download, and had internet articles and music interviews with Nickelback and all these other people, and it was launch.com, but it was a CD that got sent to me every month.
There you go. So I think what some may have forgotten, or if you're a millennial, you were probably a little too young to remember that, or definitely a Zoomer, you'd be thinking, man, this guy's old, you know. So, but we had this little walled garden back then, folks, called AOL.com. Okay. You got mail and you logged in, right? Okay. So we've put that on a multi-decade steroid program because that's literally what you just described. Okay.
Yep.
So again, remember what I said earlier? One of the secrets to be future-proofed is to decentralize.
Yes.
Bada bing. That is my answer to your question, your open dialogue there, is we have to start the process. Stop being fearful. Stop being concerned about what other people think. Go to other platforms that are already out there just waiting for people to find and use them, but they just don't have all of the attorneys, all of the regulators in their pocket. The revolving door in DC hasn't stopped, and it doesn't matter who you vote for, by the way. It's a permanent bureaucracy. So bottom line is
The B team.
find those, yeah, exactly. Find those people, find those platforms. If you want to talk to me offline, folks, I know about some of them because I'm the one out there. I'm the disruptor, folks. I'm resisting it. I am so tired of people telling me you can find me on Google and I'll pay $1 zillion to do it.
Yes.
I can care less. Okay. Forgive me for sounding mildly cynical there, but I can care less. Okay. I shut down my Facebook last year, haven't missed it for a second. So there you go. One thing that I wanted to quickly circle back to before we may or may not run out of time, Eric, is you had asked a question earlier and I almost forgot to hit it, is some advice on things that you are told by society that you probably should avoid.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Let me quickly back up the train to pick up that passenger because it's an important one.
I agree.
And let me hit that because I didn't forget, but we have so many cool things going on. I had to catch myself. Okay. So first, with all due respect to our friends in the medical profession, we do not need any more conventional doctors because they're practicing, and I'm sorry to say, and this might be mildly controversial, so edit it out if you need to. If you do this on, if you do
I'm
this
good
on
with controversy.
later.
Don't worry. I'm okay with controversy.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Most conventional medical establishment are no longer respecting the Hippocratic Oath. Okay, do no harm. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need any more. We don't need any more in the conventional establishment. There's another way, by the way, to be future-proofed. You might think, oh, another one of those people in alt medicine. Trust me, that we still need a lot more because that conventional medical establishment, it's powerful as all get out. So don't roll your eyes, please, if you've ever been approached by someone offering alt medicine options, whether it's Reiki energy or whether it's a supplement. Please, for the love of goodness, if it's not interesting to you, find someone that they can talk to, because we need to bust this establishment in many fragments.
Do you mind if I give a little interruption there, because I feel very strongly about this.
Do it.
Okay, so let me talk to you guys about this for just a second. I worked in the cancer treatment industry, because it's an industry and that's sick, but it's true, for 3 years. And we worked with alternative treatment options and modalities for people who had various stages of cancer. I did a lot of work on pain management, pain tolerance, stress management, family management. And while I don't know the answer, and nor should anybody who ever tells you they know the answer to cancer treatment should be taken seriously, I did know a lot of answers for pain management. I knew a lot of answers for family management, stress management, the Budwig diet, different ways to handle yourself and to manage your tumors and things that, really weren't talked about when you're giving chemo and told eat as much candy and sugar as you want, even though it's a fact that your tumors love candy and sugar and they're going to grow. But we're going to give you this chemotherapy and radiation therapy, and you're going to feel like shit. But we're going to make it so that you eat as much garbage as possible. We're going to tell you you deserve it because you feel like crap, and you're going to eat comfort food, and that's okay. It's not okay. And there's a lot of things that you can do to mitigate your health problems that will contribute to or exacerbate your cancer, for example. And that's just one of the few things that I know that I'm an expert in because I worked in that field for a long time. Taking better care of yourself, on not getting high fructose corn syrup in your diet, not bringing extra stress into your life, telling people no, forgiving yourself. There's a lot of things you can do to improve your life. And please reach out to myself or SJ about things. And there's other people as well, I'm sure. I'm not telling you, I'm not prescribing to you what you should do. But certainly, if somebody is telling you you have 4 months to live, but eat whatever you want, probably not the person you should listen to 100%. Maybe you have 3-4 years to live. Maybe you're going to live for 12, 13 years. Maybe the person who thinks they're going to take care of you for the next 2 years is going to die of a tumor because they're stressing out way more than you. We have no idea. And the fact that a doctor can give you a death sentence and a specific time frame that you're going to not live anymore, I think is more evidence that they don't know enough, not that they do know enough. So please reach out to somebody, get a third, fourth, a fifth opinion, find out alternative care options and ways and units of measurement for what it is that you're trying to deal with. And please do not accept a death sentence. That's one thing that I can certainly tell you. Please don't accept a death sentence. You have no idea what comes tomorrow, and neither do I, and neither does any other doctor. So please think about that. And I just wanted to give an interruption there in SJ, please. But please continue because I 100%, 110% agree with what you're saying. I think it's so important. I think healthcare is one of those places where we way overestimate experts, quote unquote experts, opinions on things when they're really just reading the same articles that we could read on PubMed.
Exactly. Couple more and then we'll move on to, I'm sure there's some questions. The next that I would say is don't follow this path, please, is do not get into conventional banking. Okay. We do not need any more investment bankers. We do not need any more people on Wall Street, please. These people have been bailed out over and over and over again, and they're one of the most protected, quiet monopolies that you've never heard of. Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about. 2008 was a totally normal time that nothing bad happened to Wells Fargo. I thought that was a totally normal thing that you get $300 billion in bailout money.
Exactly. My friend David J would be able to speak even more on this because he and I have had this chat in rational discourse many times, but I can speak soundly enough about this. Please keep your next generations out of conventional banking. We do not need any more of them. Okay. That's the next one. Another is conventional law. Okay. That is, again, as I mentioned earlier, ripe for disruption. We have way too many statute laws on the books. So unless your solution is to uncover the thicket that is sitting on every state, county, township, parishes, books, unless your solution is to thin the herd first, we don't need any more. Okay. Plenty. In fact, it has been stated somewhere, feel free to look me up on this, that pretty much everyone in America has committed at least 10 crimes that they don't know about.
I've heard that you've committed at least 3 felonies a day that you don't know about.
Okay, so even more than even I've heard, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. So in other words, we do not need any more conventional attorneys, please. Okay. Those would be 3 areas. And then another would be, again, with all respect to my friends and those in the conventional classrooms, we do not need any more teachers. Don't be alarmed at all of what you're hearing about all of the burnout and retirements and all that stuff. Actually, that's a very good thing. We need to rebalance the scales between how we deliver true education versus how we school people to the point that they are so burned out on life
Hmm.
that they become cynical by the age of 25.
Yes.
So that is the fourth and last I'll focus on for now, is please keep your kids and grandkids out of those four if you heard nothing else I said tonight.
So I love having you here, and I greatly appreciate you being here. I had some articles and things that I wanted to talk about, but I kind of want to leave it up to some Q&A. If you don't mind, I want to read some of the comments that we had throughout today's chat, and then if anybody else has any other comments or questions throughout, I'd like to be able to ask those of you. Certainly, we're going to have you back if you don't mind. I'd love to have you back for some specific topics, but so if you don't mind, I want to read some of the comments as we go through. So one of them is YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter are definitely not those open speech platforms. I think that you and I would agree with that. Somebody, Project Gnarly, talks about Amazon being a first open speech platform, which I think that you and I would agree is not. And Crypty says, I date back to the Wildcat BBS days. So, I actually go back to the ICQ, to the AOL Instant Messenger, to, those things where, yeah, and people didn't realize that ICQ was so invasive to your computer that I could open your CD tray from my computer to yours without you not having permission or anything else. And just because it goes doesn't mean that like you actually have a say in what's being done with your computer, because ICQ worked off of BIOS. I don't know if you knew that, but like ICQ was absolutely a horrible program.
I remember some of those as well, and they had different names in my my college university days. I used AOL Instant Messenger. I used Yahoo IM. I used there was something called Pine, Pine. I have no idea what it was using in the background. I used who knows? It might have taken control of the computer I had. It wasn't my computer. It was the computer in the computer lab. Because remember, I'm old. but yes. So, and quickly to pick up that comment about Amazon. Amazon is nowhere close to a free speech platform.
Ooh,
yeah. It is way too centralized. I know a couple people that are looking to start the next gen Amazon. So again, stay away from them. I haven't ordered a thing from them in over 5 years, and I have no plans to change that.
What is your recommendation? Where should we go to order things online conveniently? Because I don't believe Walmart is the answer.
I don't believe so either. Now, there is a titanic battle going on with them, but to paraphrase what a gentleman author once said, it's like getting two elephants to dance or two water heaters to do the tango. Okay. Again, those two entities have failed to rule the 150 over and over and over and over again. So, my thinking on this is to do a simple search, and notice I will not call it Googling. Google, it's just like Kleenex is not tissue paper.
Absolutely. Oh.
Red Bull is not an energy drink. Calendly is not the only calendar option. Okay? Please be careful on what you're turning into a verb. Okay?
Yep.
Stop doing that.
Do you use DuckDuckGo?
I use DuckDuckGo and StartPage are the only two I use.
StartPage. Yes, absolutely. So you can DuckDuckGo some options for finding something you're looking for, and it doesn't have to be Walmart. It doesn't have to be Amazon.
That's exactly right. So first of all, immediately stop using Google tomorrow or tonight or whenever you're listening to this, and go to immediately to DuckDuckGo and or StartPage. And then next is, you might already see a difference in the results, but if you don't, put something like non-Amazon ordering options or something like that. And you might be surprised at what you find. Because again, there are options out there, but the oxygen is sucked out of the room by these aggregators, to borrow your term.
Oh,
okay?
Yes, absolutely.
So we do not need them. We do not need another You got mail. We don't need that. Okay, let's stop it, please, folks. Okay, I'm over this Googling, and you must be on page one of Google, and you must have a Facebook account. I mean, for the love of goodness, would you please stop falling in line with the folks that are centralizing everything, and they have taken away your educational commons, they've taken away your water cooler, they've taken away your talk around the kitchen table. Please stop rewarding them for doing things that are anti-community, anti-creating your own tribe. Stop it, please.
It's like literally, I think this is where we should end off because I think it's one of the funniest things that you said, and it's also so true. Is that like we are literally living in the AOL days? We just call it Google, we just call it Amazon, but we're just using the same 2 or 3 boomer apps that we've been using because it's convenient, because it's super easy, and we haven't even bothered to type in www dot or like in a search. I would rather people ask Jeeves where they could find something than Google search something. So I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you. You're fantastic. And honestly, like, so for our viewers, including Project Gnarly, if you are our Crypty, if you are Miss Nick, anybody who's been on the chat today, I very highly encourage you to go find our friend SJ. He is a connector, SJ, and he's on there, Barakoni. He's right here. If you look at his Zoom, which is right here in the Zoom today, but you can also send me a message. Please let me know, email me, message me. I'm going to have him on again. We're going to talk about some other specific things, but he's fantastic. He's a futurist, he's a connector, and he will help you to understand where in the market your skill set might be. That's something that I think that might be valuable for even just a consultation with him. Please reach out to him, talk to him about what it is that you're looking for, talk to him about what it is that you think that you've done for a long time. He has experience in the corporate world, he has experience in the psychological world, the historical world, and most importantly, he understands the market today. And if he can get us to stop using Google and Amazon today for what we're looking to buy, imagine what he can do for you with your career and what you want to sell as your skill sets, your career, and what it is that you want to be doing to monetize yourself in the future. So thank you very much, SJ. I appreciate you. If there's anything else that you want to say to promote yourself, please let me know.
Absolutely. We'll wrap it up with this. If you prefer, have Eric be the connector. That's not a problem. If you want to look for me, I have, because of my disruptive tendencies and what I've already described, decentralized, I've decided to settle on just 2 of the legacy platforms. So LinkedIn, heavy LinkedIn user, you'll find me with no problem. I also still, for this time being, I'm still on Instagram under The Education Sherpa. And I have a scheduler that's not Calendly. And of course, I have a phone number and a couple email addresses, which Eric has that stuff. But anyway, those are how you can reach, and it'd be my pleasure to be of value to you in some way. And Eric, thank you for the pre-offer to be back. I'd be more than glad to come back how many ever times you think I can add value. So thank you so much, everyone.
Absolutely. No, I'm very happy to have you on. I'd love to have you back on. We're going to talk about some random stuff. Actually, I have a couple articles that I'd like to kind of go over with you next time. I'm gonna keep it and then just like save it for the next time. But I just think that you're somebody who's going to be recurring on here, and we're going to talk about some things. And I love your perspective. I love how you just see things in this different way, and that it's something that I think people need, is to be able to get that different perspective. So I really appreciate you, and absolutely I'm going to send people your way. But please, if you're on here, send a comment, put in a like, and let me know that you want to get in contact with SJ, and I will give you the contact information. And again, we will have him on in the near future. I already had somebody say, like, please put him on again. So we will get you on. And thank you very much, SJ. And we're going to put on some music and get some people on out of here. And you guys can enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll be back here at Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Holistic Life Consultants. And have a great night.